So I wanted to talk today a little bit about problems. And I'm not talking about problems with meditation. I'm talking about problems, problems in life, all possible problems. Just a short discussion on all possible problems, on the solution to all possible problems. Um, Problems are what cause us suffering, or it's a way of conceiving of our suffering. We don't suffer unless we have a problem, or suffering is the problem, right? Now, at the deepest level of the meditative path, there's a real sense in which we can see that our problems are all self-generated, right? If there's something in the world you don't like, it's a problem. If you ceased to not like it, right? If you ceased to have a problem with it, it would not be a problem. There are, let's see, my tea is too hot for me, right? I wish it was cool off so I could drink it a little bit more. Then it's a problem for me. And I might sit here going, I wish it would cool off. I want to have my tea. And if I don't care about the temperature, right, it's not a problem for me. It's not a problem for any of you, right? You don't care what temperature my tea is. So all our problems are determined by what we have desires about, what we have aversions to. Now that's easy to say, and you can intellectually get that. And you could just think today in your life, what problems do you have? And it may seem cold or it may seem dismissive, what I'm saying. And I think that's true in some sense, if we don't think about this fully deeply, but just try it on. Go, okay, I have a problem. I have something that's bothering me. The suffering in this problem is not intrinsic to the situation. The suffering is due to my response to it, to my desires, to my aversions with respect to the thing. There are other people in the world, this situation is happening, and other people in the world are not suffering from this situation because it's not triggering their desires or their aversions. And this way of solving a problem doesn't obviously change, it doesn't fix the external world. It will change your own internal attitude, which, by the way, is the thing you have the most control over. So that's one way of thinking. That's the most abstract, and it's actually not what I want to talk about. It's just a point to remember that as we sit in meditation, one thing we're moving towards is letting go of our own aversions, letting go of our own attachments. And as we do that, we are moving towards a solution to all our problems. But I want to talk about a more specific aspect of that. In the specifics of our moment-by-moment experience, attachment and aversion, suffering, problems, drama, however you want to put it, is built by very rich, specific sensory experiences. We think of our problems with an idea. It's like, I don't have enough money, and you just put it up there, right? It's just an idea. I don't have enough money. But if you are suffering from not having enough money in this present moment, then that experience of not having enough money is made of a very detailed and specific set of sensory experiences. What do I mean by that? I don't have enough money is an abstract concept about numbers and things, right? That's not what you're suffering from. In the moment that you're feeling suffering, you are suffering because of sensory experiences in your body. It might be tension. You could call it fear. You could call it emotional content. It might be heat. It might be pain. Pain that you have connected to the idea that you don't have enough money. That's one set of sensory experiences. You may have another set of sensory experiences in your mind, which are pictures of you being destitute and living on the street, or of your mother when she was poor and how upset she was, right? Memories might be coming up, or visions of the future. You have another set of sensory experiences, which are the words, I don't have enough money, I need enough money, I need more money, what am I going to do? Words in your head that are echoing and repeating. So the moment that we have a problem, it is built of specific sensory experiences in our present moment. Does that make sense? We think of the problem as this abstract thing. Well, the world is like this, and I need this, and that's all true. But if you're suffering in this moment, it only exists as a problem for you in this moment because of the sensory experience you're having in this moment. There's no way. You don't have any access to whether you have money in an hour or 5 days or a week from now. You don't have any experience of that except through images in your head right now. It's only a problem because you have memories and stories that you're telling yourself in this present moment. That are the content of your aversion to this experience or your attachment to something. So this is why we practice in meditation looking very closely at our experience. In the normal way we think of solving a problem, it makes sense, right? You want to look closely at the elements in your problem so you can solve the puzzle, right? And often we realize this, that our fear keeps us from actually looking very closely at our problems because it's too scary. And there's almost no way to solve a problem in a normal everyday sense of solve a problem unless you look at the content of the problem and try and figure out a way around it. Well, meditation, we're going a step before that. We're before the external world, right? We're going a step before we access, we worry about trying to arrange the world in a particular way. And now we're looking at the content of the problem in our own experience. And this is a really, really important thing I'm saying right now. If you're having a problem, if you look closely enough, you can see the problem being made. You can see the problem being constructed in your own experience. Once you truly see the problem being constructed, you cease to be attached to the problem in the same way. You can see, oh, this problem that I've made into this abstract thing about the future and about my past is actually all here in the present moment. And this is how it's built. And it's only built of heat and pressure and tightness and flow and color and sound. This problem, oh my gosh, this problem is a movie that I'm playing in my head. And just like we can get alarmed by a movie that we are watching on a screen, we get alarmed by the movie we're playing inside of ourselves. But the beautiful thing about the movie on the screen is we know it's constructed. We know it's not, it's being made, being generated by sensory phenomena all put together in the perfect way to give me an emotional experience. The same thing is happening for the movie inside of us. It is constructed in the perfect way to give us an emotional experience, to attach us to it and grab us. But once you see how the movie is made, you free yourself from your problem. But we need to look closely because it's constructed by pixel by pixel. When you start looking closely, you can see some things dissolve very quickly. But over time, as you want to really free yourself, you'll notice the most subtle things. Like, oh yeah, there's a subtle picture over here of death. Right? There's just a little image, the faintest image, but it's an image of death, whatever that might be. It might be a dead cat in the road. And it somehow is connected to your idea about money, right? You just subtle things that have to be brought into consciousness so you can see how you're constructing your suffering. So this is why when we meditate, we practice looking very closely. We don't want to practice just looking at suffering because that can get overwhelming, right? We want to look at everything that way. We want to start looking at our pleasure that way. We want to start looking at our breath that way. We want to start looking at our room that way, with more detail, with more awareness, with more attention to the present moment. And as we do that, as that becomes a habit, then our problems, our suffering also gets attended to in that way. So when we sit down to meditate, add this into your motivation. We're trying to see how our suffering is made, how our problems are made. It's all right here. The solution to all your problems is right here. Don't make that into another problem. I have to see, right? That will just be another problem. So you want to practice seeing without making it into a problem. Now, a beautiful benefit of this is that, as I said, this actually does help you solve problems in the more human way as well, because now you are able to see what's actually going on. What would actually make your body feel better? What's the thing that's actually most problematic to you? What it's actually made of? You're more willing, you're able to step back and not be as biased, so you can see the situation with more perspective. So it actually helps. It's always going to help you to actually solve problems, to investigate them. But that's not why we investigate in meditation. We investigate to see how it's made in this present moment. And then that has the benefit of us being more aware, more in tune with ourselves, more in tune with our situation, and allows us to act more efficiently. It makes it easier for us to make the money we need. I'll give you an example of that. For instance, for me, with respect to money, I learned that I had a sort of weird idea about money. Everybody has these weird ideas about money, most of us, unless you were brought up really healthily. I had this idea that I was just going, money, I was going to get a lot of money, right? It was not like I have to build up and get, there's always going to be a windfall in my mind somehow. There was always going to be like the big movie or the lottery or whatever, and not the lottery really, but that kind of thing. That was an idea I had in my head, somewhere built in there. Not that I ever was very conscious of. This was a few years ago. But so that would affect how I interact, how I made choices, right? Doesn't make as much sense to work day by day to gather small amounts of money if you have a huge amount of money coming in the future, right? It's like, why would you waste your time on that boring stuff? Right? So if I don't see that, well, one, I'll just keep making the same mistake over and over again. Now, tied in there is some fear about money, right? And that's where the suffering comes in about it. It would be fine if I lived that way, if I had no desires or attachments about it, right? So the two get done together. as we start to free ourselves from our attachments, we also get better access to how to solve the problems in the world. Not perfect access. There's always going to be problems in the world. The world is not under our control, right? But we can be more in tune with it. So I want to bring this back to the meditation. And we've been doing a meditation where we focus in detail on our breath as it comes in. We focus in detail on our breath as it goes out. And then in between the in and out breath, we focus on our whole body. And these are two different ways of attending to our present moment experience. And they're both important for what I'm talking about today. So the first is a kind of deconstruction. And it has a scientific, empirical kind of attitude. We look very closely and we see exactly how our present moment experience is built, how our suffering is built, how our happiness is built, how our ideas about the world are built. We look in exquisite detail until we get the very pixels that make up that experience. That's one way we look. Another way that I'm trying to encourage us to look is also we step back and we experience the whole thing by removing ourselves. At first, we're sort of removing ourselves, we're zooming out so that we can take in the holistic experience of how our present moment is created. Sometimes when we're looking very closely, we can go, oh, my problem's mostly in here in my heart, say, and we can miss that, oh, there's something going on in my lower belly, or yeah, there's a little thought over here, right? And we want to learn to be able to disentangle ourselves from the whole experience as well. And ultimately, that is the deeper practice, is to be able to disentangle ourselves fully from our sensory experience. It helps us see more clearly. And when you do that, when that becomes your operating system, then you actually don't need to consciously figure out every little detail of your problems anymore, because you can just disentangle and let them figure themselves out. They can start to unwind themselves. I don't know if that makes I think to the people on Zoom, you've all experienced this, but may not make sense to everybody if this is new for you. But all that's important to know right now is that there are these two ways of sort of engaging with our present moment. One is we get really focused and detailed, and we allow ourselves to deconstruct our experience. We really make sure we're not missing things, that we're really there and present for every moment of it. This is very important. And another way is we learn to unattach from our experience and move back and see it globally, holistically, in its context, see our whole body in its context, and allow it to do its thing without having to control it or interfere with it. And so the practice we've been doing with the breath meditation allows us to practice both of those things. The first is really important at first because we need to build concentration, and it's a much easier way to build concentration, to know what we're focusing on. Focusing on my breath. I'm trying to see it in detail right now. We build our concentration so that we can start to hold our attention still. But the second is ultimately more important. That is, can we hold our attention still, but drop back and not interfere with it, not have to figure it out, not have to get immersed in it, unattached from it. And something to do in your everyday life, and we can do it. We can do it now as a little exercise. We can just notice you're zooming in on my words, right? You're hearing my words. You're focused on my words. You're sort of focused on them intellectually. Now focus on them meditatively. What does that mean? I experience them sensorily. Experience the sound of my words. Start to see that my words are made of sound. They have pitch and rhythm, beginning and ending, loudness and softness. Oh, see, we're moving into the present moment there. We're not just in our head and thinking how this affects me and whether it's right or wrong and all that stuff. We're starting to drop into the present experience. So you can now open your eyes and you can look at the image of the person who's speaking, and you can do the same thing. There's a person, and there's movement on the screen, and there's color and shape, boundaries, light and dark. Okay, so we're focusing in now on the sound and the image of our present moment. And then we can practice the other, which is we zoom out. So let's do it visually. You see my face. Now go to the edge of the box that I'm in, right? And see the whole box all at once. You're zooming out now. You're not worried about the details so much. You're just taking in the whole box. So what happens there is you're not involving your mind and trying to catch and understand and memorize and every detail here. You're just zooming out and taking in the present experience of the whole box. Now let your peripheral vision go even wider and get the whole screen, if it's a phone or a computer. Top to bottom, left to right, the whole screen. And again, we're no longer worried in the details. You're trying to see the whole screen at once. When you do that, it starts to get a little blurry, but you're now disengaging from holding on to the details. And now we can go wider. Let's go out to our left and right peripheral vision, off the computer, all the way out, all the way up to the top of our vision, all the way down to the bottom of our vision. And we're not looking particularly at those spots. We're seeing it all at once. This practice has been studied in detail. There's things that happen to the brain when we start to engage in this holistic way. We calm down, we relax. Because the only time we take in a whole view like this is if we're sitting on a cliff and looking at the sunset or something. It's only when we feel safe that we are willing to sit back and not have to pick out the individual things that are happening, right? I'm safe enough that I don't have to know everything that's going on in my visual field. I can just take it in all at once. Sort of the furthest you can push this all the way, and you sort of start to experience yourself in your environment. It's almost like you can see yourself sitting in your room or wherever you are. At the furthest, it starts to feel like you're sitting behind your head or above your head or something. So that's an example of really focused and really wide. And they're really different, but they're both part of meditation. They're both important parts. We're doing the really focused mainly at first to build our concentration so that we can ultimately sit back in the wider perspective in a more stable way. And when we could do that, we can sit back in the more stable perspective. And when we need to, right, we can zoom in on particular things that need to be attended to functionally. But we don't have to attend to all the things and keep ourselves on high alert all the time. We don't need to do that anymore. We can relax. And when something important comes up, we can come in and address it. But that's down the road. Michelle, let's save any questions for after, if that's great. Okay, so we're going to sit now. I'm actually going to